Maya Chen's heels clicked against the marble floor of Summit Trust Bank as she rushed toward the executive conference room. Something felt wrong. The emergency board meeting had been called without her knowledge, and whispers followed her through the house like shadows. "Gentlemen," Maya said, pushing open the heavy oak doors. 8 white faces turned toward her, their expressions cold and calculating. Board Chairman Tom Wilson barely looked up from his papers. "Maya, please, sit." The room felt suffocating. This man had smiled at her just weeks ago, praised her for increasing profits by 30%. Now their eyes held something darker. "We've been discussing the future direction of this institution," Wilson continued, his voice dripping with false politeness. "And we feel a change in leadership is necessary." Maya's heart pounded. "Excuse me. The board has lost confidence in your ability to lead," said board member Rick Davis, barely concealing his smirk. "Effective immediately." The vote was swift. Brutal. 8 hands raised against her. Not one stood in her defense. "The expulsion security will escort you out," Wilson announced, pressing a button under the table. Maya stood frozen as 2 guards appeared at the doorway. The humiliation burned through her chest like fire. 20 years of banking experience, an MBA from Harvard, and this was how it ended. "This is illegal," she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "You can't just." "We can, and we have," Davis interrupted. "Your personal belongings will be sent to you." Outside the bank, reporters had already gathered. Cameras flashed as Maya walked through the crowd, her head held high despite the chaos erupting around her. The headlines would write themselves, "Black CEO ousted in corporate coup." But as Maya reached her car, something sparked in her eyes. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Building the case 3 days later, Maya sat across from James Rodriguez, one of the city's most feared civil rights attorneys. His office walls were lined with victory photos, settlements that had brought down corrupt corporations. "They made one critical mistake," James said, sliding a legal pad across his desk. "They documented everything. Emails, meeting minutes, even recorded calls." Maya leaned forward. "What kind of documentation?" "The kind that shows a pattern of racial discrimination going back 2 years. Comments about your aggressive leadership style and concerns about your cultural fit with their vision." Maya's jaw tightened. She remembered those exact phrases from her performance reviews. James continued. "But there's more. My contacts in the financial sector suggest something bigger is happening at Summit Trust. Missing funds, questionable loan approvals. They needed a scapegoat, and you were perfect. So they get rid of the black CEO and pin their crimes on me." "Exactly. But we're going to turn their plan inside out." Over the next week, Maya and James worked tirelessly. They gathered testimonies from employees who witnessed discriminatory comments. They analyzed financial records that revealed suspicious transactions approved by board members. Every piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of conspiracy and fraud. The investigation unfolds. Private investigator Lisa Park joined their team on day 10. Her reputation for uncovering corporate secrets was legendary, and she wasted no time diving into Summit Trust's operations. "Your former colleagues are nervous," Lisa reported during a late-night meeting at James's office. "Davis has been making unusual trips to offshore banking locations. Wilson liquidated several personal investments last week." Maya's eyes narrowed. "They're covering their tracks. Or preparing to run," James added grimly. "We need to move faster." Lisa spread out photographs and bank statements across the conference table. "I've traced at least $3 million in unauthorized transfers to accounts controlled by board members. They've been siphoning money for months, maybe years." The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, backdated documents, and a web of financial manipulation that reached deep into Summit Trust's operations. Maya realized she hadn't just been fired, She had been set up to take the fall for their crimes. How long do we have? Maya asked. The statute of limitations gives us 6 months, James replied. But if they succeed in pinning this on you first, we lose everything. The legal strike on a rainy Tuesday morning, James filed the lawsuit that would change everything. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters as Maya stood beside her attorney, her chin raised defiantly. Today, we file a $50 million lawsuit against Summit Trust Bank and its board of directors, James announced to the crowd. For racial discrimination, wrongful termination, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The media explosion was immediate. Within hours, the story had national attention. Social media erupted with support for Maya, and Summit Trust's stock price plummeted. Inside the bank's boardroom, panic had set in. Wilson paced frantically while Davis shouted into his phone, trying to reach his lawyers. Their carefully constructed plan was collapsing, and they were turning on each other like cornered animals. You said this would be simple. Davis screamed at Wilson. Just remove the black woman and everything would be fine. But nothing was fine anymore. Their racist conspiracy had been exposed, and the world was watching. Courtroom showdown. The trial began 3 months later in a packed courtroom. Maya sat beside James, watching as their evidence dismantled Summit Trust's defense piece by piece. Former employees testified about the discriminatory comments they had witnessed. Financial experts explained how the board had systematically stolen millions while preparing to blame Maya. The recordings Lisa had obtained played clearly through the courtroom speakers, capturing board members using racial slurs and planning Maya's downfall. Wilson took the stand and crumbled under cross-examination. His lies contradicted the evidence, and his racist motivations became undeniable to everyone present. When the jury returned with their verdict, Maya stood tall. Guilty on all counts. $50 million in damages. Criminal charges pending. Outside the courthouse, Maya faced the cameras one final time. Justice isn't just about winning, she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. It's about ensuring this never happens to another person who looks like me. The boardroom betrayal had backfired spectacularly. Maya Chen had not just cleared her name, she had exposed a system of corruption and racism that would send shockwaves through the banking industry forever.